Anyone following our channels for a while will know that the railway inside the workshop doesn't connect to the railway in the field. But that's about to change.
Way down here.
It did involve quite a lot of work though. For a start, someone had built a concrete concourse that sticks out at the back of the barn. I wonder who that was. They'd made a really good job of putting this in, and after an hour I'd only kangoed away about a metre of it. I had to call in help in the shape of Joe, otherwise I might still be at it. Of course, it wasn't just concrete, there was reinforcement of the old bicycle variety and other mysterious things. Now, for some unknown reason, the camera stopped recording sound for a while. Sorry about that. You'll just have to talk amongst yourselves or imagine some sparkling banter between me and Joe down at the railway works. If you remember, this concrete track was laid for the bandsaw that used to live here. I have a different bandsaw now, so this can go. Now these rails are the same gauge as these rails. They're both 15-inch gauge, which just means there's 15 inches between the rails. So if we could get them to the same level, then we should be able to connect them up all right. But there is a height differential of nearly 2 feet, so I'm using the whole distance to the garlic beds so that the slope is as gentle as possible. And that's what we did for a while, cutting away the concrete and filling in the hollow. Now, of course, we also need to build a junction so we can access the rest of the railway and not just the garlic. Now I think this is the 7th junction that I've made, so I'm getting faster at it. There are other sorts, of course, but this is the simplest. It's a kick switch junction, and they're easy and quick to make and so satisfying to use. Ooh, everybody needs one. Some people don't like them though because they are not as smooth as other sorts. In fact, you can't have a smooth curve in them because they rely on having straight parallel tracks. So the first thing I did was replace the curved section of the existing rail with a new piece bent in 2 places. We used the press in the workshop for this because it was handy. But you can bend this rail in the field if you have to. The steel is 8mm thick and 50mm tall, but it is doable. And the new piece fitted nicely in where the old piece was. Now the trick to these junctions, as I've discovered, is to set up the 2 outer rails first. So next came a straight rail all the way down from the barn on the right hand side. I could use some of the existing rail straightened out, but the holes were in the wrong place. So I used my trusted sideways drilling contraption, and that made short work of drilling new holes in the right places. Oh, happy day! When that rail was in place, we could see how long the new sleepers needed to be to go from one side to the other. Then I could cut those to length and drill holes in the sleepers for the pegs and then bolt everything together. And that gave us the levels as well down the slope. So more fill was needed to go in to support the sleepers. And it needed quite an embankment in places too, but it feels less steep than I was fearing. Now then, with the two outer rails in place, it's possible to work out where the frog will be. Using sticks of wood the right length, you can follow the lines of the inner rails until they meet at a point that's 15 inches from both sides. That's the frog or hinge point, and it needs good support, so you need to arrange a sleeper to be just there underneath it at the right time. I welded two pieces of rail together at the correct angle to make up the frog, and added a pin which goes down into a hole in the sleeper to stop anything moving. Then I could cut the ends to the right length and fit them into the fish plates. And add more pegs into more sleepers so the rails are held tight. Meanwhile, Joe was busy supporting the sleepers all the way down the slope. And everything was feeling pretty good and solid. So then all that was needed was the blade. The blade works as the matching pair for either of the outer rails, depending where it is. It's used from both sides, so it has to be narrow, but it also has to stand up on its own. So I use angle iron for this job and hinge it next to the frog using another pin in another hole. After that, it just needs to be trimmed to fit both rails and still maintain the correct gauge, more or less, all the way along, even in the bends. Which brings me back to the difference between the workshop railway and the field railway. This one is reasonably even and tight. I set it up to take these neat little wheels which have narrow treads and shallow flanges. They are great for the little trolleys that I use in the workshop. I wouldn't want big wheels in there because then the trolleys would be too tall and not as useful. The trouble is, those neat little wheels need level tracks, or they'd walk off the rails, and a very accurate gap between them, or they'll fall down between the rails. They just can't cope with rough and ready. But of course the field railway is very rough and ready. The gap between the rails varies quite a bit, and the tops aren't level often. So the field railway needs rough and ready wheels to ride on them. And that's why I made these sort of wheels with wide treads and deep flanges. These things will stay on whatever the railway does. So then, if they're not compatible, Tim, what's the point of joining up the two railways? Well, the big wheels don't work very well in the workshop because the flanges are too deep, but they do sort of work. So I should be able to take out materials for the new railway that we're building, of course, and in the summer I should be able to bring in loads of garlic. Now that's if the new junction works, of course. Also there. Perfect. Better check it out. Woohoo! So smooth.
Line.
It's excellent. Hooray! Top Joe. We could do this all day, couldn't we? It works better than I thought it would. That's pretty good. Do you want to get in it? Do you want to try it? Yeah. I got that consent on camera.
Safety gear. Okay. Here we go.
An old man, he needs cushions.
Wee nod.
Get my muddy boots in shot.
Here we go.
Yeah, let it go. Way! Woohoo! Are you pushing? Help! I'm out of line. It's all the way over there. Made it all the way through. Okay, I think it's a success. Well done. Excellent.